They called him untouchable. But Brendan Kalichiren's reign as South Africa's most brutal boss ended in a hail of bullets. His rise to power was a story of ambition, betrayal, and bloodshed, but his fall was even more dramatic. Kalichiren wasn't just a gang leader, he was a symbol of fear, wealth, and ruthless dominance in Durban's underworld. From showing off his luxury lifestyle to commanding loyalty through violence, he ruled with an iron fist. Yet, as powerful as he seemed, Kalichiren had enemies hiding in the shadows, waiting for their chance to strike. His death shocked the nation, exposing the fragile balance of power in the criminal world and leaving a legacy written in blood.
Durban gang leader has been shot dead execution style.
It's after 5 people were shot dead yesterday in the first incident.
The rise and fall of South Africa's most famous gang leader. Brendan Kalichiren's story is one of power, ambition, and a dramatic fall that left the criminal world thrown into chaos. Starting from the depths of Durban's violent streets, Brendan rose to become a feared and respected gang leader. His journey was filled with betrayal, luxury, and terror, all culminating in a violent ambush that marked the end of his reign. Kalichiren's life symbolized both the attraction as well as the danger of South Africa's underworld. As much as he abused influence and power, his end was a dark reminder that no kingpin remains untouchable. The title of South Africa's most brutal boss was not given lightly. Brendan's actions left a deep scar on his community, both through fear and destruction. From his early days as a protege to becoming the head of the popular 11th Street Gang, Brendan's ability to seize opportunities set him apart. But in the same moment, his reckless displays of power and disregard for alliances painted a target on his back. His ultimate passing created a void that sparked chaos, showing how fragile even the strongest criminal empires can be. From protege to kingpin. In 2008, the Durban underworld changed forever when Calvin Naidoo, a feared and influential gang leader, was assassinated in a calculated drive-by shooting. The power vacuum left by Naidoo's death created chaos, but it also presented a golden opportunity for Brendan Kalichiren, who had been Naidoo's trusted protege. Brendan, quick to act, positioned himself as the natural successor to Naidoo's empire. His boldness and strategic thinking earned him both respect and enemies, but it also painted him as a leader capable of commanding a vast criminal network. Brendan was no ordinary gang leader. He was ruthless, calculated, and always one step ahead of his enemies. Under his leadership, the 11th Street Gang grew in strength and influence, dominating the streets of Durban.
Gang members and opened fire.
These subjects woke up every day with one.
However, Brendan's methods were far from subtle. His rise was marked by violent turf wars, strategic eliminations of rivals, and calculated alliances. His brutal enforcement of loyalty ensured that no one dared challenge him without facing the most serious consequences. But Brendan's rule was not built on strength alone. He was a master manipulator, using charm and promises of wealth to recruit the young and impressionable into his ranks. His ability to adapt quickly to the ever-changing dynamics of the underworld made him a force to be reckoned with. However, the very tactics that helped him rise would also set the stage for his downfall. A life of wealth on display. Unlike most gang leaders who preferred to operate in the shadows, Brendan Kalichiren lived his life in full view of the public. He turned social media into a platform for showing off his illegally obtained wealth, posting images of himself beside luxury cars, at extravagant events, and wearing designer clothing. His online presence was a mix of intimidation and attractiveness. For his rivals, it was an insult, a way of saying he was untouchable. For young, impressionable followers, it was a dream of what a life in his world could offer. Kalichiren's posts were more than just a display of wealth. They were a statement of power. His public image was carefully crafted to make him appear invincible, a man beyond the reach of both his enemies and the law. However, this arrogance would play a key role in his eventual downfall. His extravagant way of life drew attention not only from rivals but also from law enforcement. Yet, despite numerous arrests, he always seemed to evade serious charges, fueling rumors of corruption within the police force. Brendan's life was like a movie script, where the lead character always outsmarts the system, but his boldness also created discontent. Rival factions and even members of his own gang began plotting against him, seeing his public displays as a weakness that could be exploited. The ambush, how South Africa's brutal boss met his end. Brendan Kalichiren's reign ended in the most dramatic and violent way imaginable. an event that left the streets of Durban buzzing with fear and disbelief. On a seemingly ordinary day, Brendan was driving his prized Volkswagen Amarok, a vehicle that had become a symbol of his success and power. But as he navigated through the city, a group of armed men were waiting for him. This was no random act of violence. It was a calculated, military-style ambush carried out with precision and deadly intent. As Brendan's truck approached the ambush site, the assailants struck. Armed with military-grade weapons, they unleashed a barrage of bullets, riddling the vehicle with gunfire. The attack was swift and ruthless, leaving Brendan with no chance to escape or defend himself. Witnesses described the scene as something out of a war movie: shattered glass, the roar of automatic weapons, and the unmistakable smell of burning rubber. Within moments, Brendan Kalichiren, the man who once ruled Durban's streets with an iron fist, was no more. The assassination sent shockwaves through the city. It wasn't just the violent nature of his death that stunned people. It was the fact that someone had finally succeeded in taking down the seemingly untouchable kingpin. Rumors were circulating about who was behind the ambush. Was it a rival gang exacting revenge? A betrayal from within his own circle? Or perhaps a long-overdue act of vigilante justice? The truth remains shrouded in mystery, but one thing was clear: Brendan's death was the result of years of enemies lying in wait, awaiting the right time for the perfect moment to strike. Chaos and power struggles in the aftermath. Brendan Kalichiren's death didn't just mark the end of his rule, it threw the entire criminal landscape of Durban into chaos. The 11th Street Gang, once a unified and fearsome organization under Brendan's iron grip, quickly fell apart. Without their ruthless leader to keep them in line, internal factions began to fight for dominance, each claiming they were the rightful successors to the throne. What followed was a bloody and chaotic power struggle that saw the gang splinter into rival groups, each more desperate than the last to seize control. The power vacuum left by Brendan's demise wasn't just an internal problem for the 11th Street Gang. Rival gangs, long oppressed under Brendan's rule, saw this as their golden opportunity to expand their territories. Turf wars erupted across Durban, with the city's streets becoming a battleground for control of profitable drug and smuggling operations. The violence that followed was unmatched, with innocent people often caught in the crossfire. For the community, Brendan's death was both a relief and a curse. While many celebrated the end of his brutal reign, the following chaos made life even more dangerous for ordinary citizens. Law enforcement, already struggling with corruption and underfunding, found themselves overwhelmed by the surge in gang violence. Brendan Kalichiren's life and death left an indelible mark on Durban's history. For years, he had been a symbol of power, wealth, and ruthlessness, a man who seemed untouchable despite his many enemies. But in the end, his story was one of inevitable tragedy. His rise to power was built on violence and betrayal, and his fall came as no surprise to those who had watched him make enemies at every turn. His lavish lifestyle, once a symbol of his success, became a cautionary tale. For those who aspired to follow in his footsteps, Brendan's story served as a dark reminder that a life of crime is never without consequences. The young men who had idolized him, drawn in by the appeal of simple money and power, were left to wonder if it was all worth it. Brendan's death didn't just signal the end of a man, it was the beginning of a new era of uncertainty and violence in Durban's criminal world. In the end, Brendan Kalichiren's legacy is a stark reminder of the cost of living a life filled with crime and corruption. He lived fast, ruled with an iron fist, and died violently, leaving behind a trail of blood and chaos. His story is a lesson in the temporary nature of power and the inescapable consequences of a life built on fear and betrayal. Brendan Kalichiren may be gone, but the echoes of his life and his brutal end will haunt Durban for years to come.